All right, so where we left off at was the Ginyu Force basically getting no diffed. So let's see what happens when they go up against Frieza. Solid Saiyans, what if Kakarot joined Vegeta's crew reaction part 2? Let's go.
Frieza powers up and shows the true strength of his first form, with the four Saiyans all assuming a battle stance, ready for a fight. After displaying the full power of his first form, Frieza launches in. The fight begins. But much to Frieza's surprise, in his first form, he's absolutely demolished. He can't even keep up with one of them. Even Raditz individually could keep up with him pretty closely, with
That's
Frieza only
crazy.
being slightly above him. And the other three, they're stronger than his first form individually. But right now they're all fighting together, so they're not even at full power. Frieza checks his scouter, still in disbelief. And it shows that collectively the four of them only slightly outmatch his first form. Okay, just like he thought. They're a lot stronger than expected, but he could defeat them by transforming easily. Of course, what he doesn't realize is that they're not at full power right now. They're trying to conserve energy, and this is only a fraction of their strength. Frieza goes into his second form, so they show off more power too. They're surprised to see this transformation and hear that he actually has more. But it's not really too big of a deal for them. They still feel confident here. As for Frieza though, he's absolutely confused. He didn't know the Saiyans would be this strong, especially the low-class ones. And seeing that they were able to grow in power
Especially
when he
Raditz.
transformed, he decides he's not going to hold back anymore. Maybe he shouldn't underestimate them, as much as he'd love to. He completely skips his third form, going right into his final form. He doesn't have time to charge into his full power right away, but his current level should be more than enough. He commends them for making him go this far in general, but this is the last thing that they'll be able to see. They should take solace in the fact that they're able to actually see this form. They're pretty much the only ones to ever fight him in this form. And now, this match is actually getting a little bit more even. Actually, going more into Frieza's favor now. By the time he's showing off 50% of his full strength, that's of course going to give the Saiyans trouble. But they actually do have one thing working in their favor, and it's out of pure coincidence. All at once, the four Saiyans leave the fight, rocketing away towards the other side of the planet. Frieza of course chases them, wondering why they're running. It's already too late for that. But they're not retreating. They're going somewhere, basically leading Frieza into an ambush. They arrive on the complete opposite side of the planet. This was completely unintentional, but when they found this planet, they did see that it had a moon, giving off a pretty good amount of Blitz waves too. Even when it's not full, they get more than enough radiation. The moon is in full view. The four rocket up into the atmosphere, trying to absorb as many Blitz waves as possible, getting as close to the moon as they can to make sure that they get everything they can get. And by the time Frieza is near them, it's already too late. Four great apes fall down from the sky, landing on Frieza. Of course, they have artificial moons, but they didn't want to use that just yet, especially when they have a perfectly good moon right here. This boost in power actually really does help them out, although it's still not as much as they really need here. Even with all of their power combined, Frieza's 50% is still slightly stronger than their collective strength as great apes. But this is
Damn.
fun for him too. This will make him feel even better, beating the Saiyans at their peak, four of them at once too, and he's not even using his full power. Frieza has the upper hand in this battle, although he does get bored of fighting the great apes, and he wants to see the look on their faces when he kills them. Plus, he might as well make it easier on himself. He could just cut off their tails, but the easiest thing to do is just simply blow up the moon. Frieza lets out a huge
Wow,
shockwave of power,
okay,
blowing
sure.
the great apes away from him. He smirks as he points a finger into the sky, launching a beam from it so powerful that it instantly blows up the moon. The sky is darker without the moon's reflected light, illuminated with fiery meteors showering down on the planet, making it look almost apocalyptic. The Saiyans all de-transform, going back into their base. Frieza says it's been fun testing out his power, but he's pretty much done here. He doesn't want to waste any more time or effort, especially because they proved that they can't really do anything against him. Once again, he does commend them though. They made it this far. They are quite strong after all, just not really on his level. It's too bad they're fighting the Emperor, the strongest person in the universe. Nappa's the first one to try and attack Frieza again. Frieza looks
Boy,
at the
Nappa
same
about to
finger
get
that he
no
destroyed
diff.
the moon with, and pretty casually launches a beam right through Nappa's chest, then pointing a finger at Kakarot. The moment the beam's about to hit Kakarot, Raditz tackles his brother out of the way, taking the full force of the beam as it goes through him instead. Vegeta's able to get in close and tries fighting Frieza, but he effortlessly dodges all of Vegeta's attacks. Kakarot doesn't even try to attack. He tries to see if Raditz and Nappa are still alive, and barely they are. As Frieza's casually dodging all of Vegeta's attacks, the other three Saiyans catch his eye, and he realizes that he didn't finish the job. He chuckles and says he'll get it right this time, whipping Vegeta away with his tail, then lifting up a finger in each hand, launching another death beam from each finger. Kakarot jumps out of the way just in the nick of time, but Frieza only launches two beams, aimed more decisively this time around, hitting Raditz and Nappa right in the head. That should do the
Damn,
job. Vegeta struggles
headshot.
to get back up after
Okay.
taking that attack, with Kakarot realizing it's just him and Vegeta left. Raditz and Nappa, they're actually dead. And they died so easily too. And it's not because they're weak, it's just because Frieza's strong. Way too strong. All the hard work that Kakarot did, it was for nothing. They're still not going to win here. But even if the odds are against him, Kakarot's not giving up just yet. He still has fight left in him. The ground starts shaking around him, with his aura flaring up, this time changing into a golden color. But that's it. Kakarot's rage fuels him as he launches in towards Frieza, gaining a huge boost in speed and power. Although, it's not a massive boost. Frieza's taken aback at first. He's actually taking some damage from Kakarot's attacks. Whatever power he's using right now is clearly stronger than his Grade 8 form, and Frieza's surprised that they even had any more power left in them. But Kakarot tells Frieza no matter what, they're going to win here. He won't accept Raditz and Nappa's
Super
death
Saiyan?
either,
Okay.
especially after Raditz even saved him, something he could have never expected. The Saiyans were never close to each other, at least not until very recently, and even then, they're barely friends, basically just allies at most. But that act from Raditz, sacrificing himself to save Kakarot, that's the first truly brotherly thing he's ever done. It's the first time he's ever seen anything like that from a Saiyan in general. The only time he's ever actually seen a Saiyan do something like that is, well, when his parents saved him, back as a kid. Despite never getting to see much of the Saiyans on planet Vegeta, he knows that what happened just now, that's un-Saiyan-like. Everything they've been doing so far is extraordinary, never before seen from the Saiyans. And it reminds Kakarot, they're not just stuck as being meathead brutes. They could be more than that. They could be valiant warriors like this. The anger at the death of Raditz and Nappa, as well as the determination to win, that's what's fueling Kakarot here, giving him a brief boost in power. Vegeta stumbles as he stands up, still feeling awe from taking that attack from Frieza. Just a single tail whip is able to do this to him, and it makes him wonder if what he's seeing is actually real. Kakarot's doing pretty well against Frieza, and it makes Vegeta wonder what kind of power that is, that golden aura surrounding him. Is he a Super Saiyan? No, it can't be. But he has no other explanation for what this is. Little does Vegeta know though, this isn't Super Saiyan. Sure, Kakarot's getting some sort of a boost. This is a false Super Saiyan of sorts, but not the true form. But even if Kakarot did have the real Super Saiyan form here, it still wouldn't be enough. This boost in power only temporarily distracts Frieza. It looks like Kakarot didn't have a big enough push yet to actually get that power. And with one serious attack, Frieza is able to land a direct hit on Kakarot, delivering enough power in this attack to knock him unconscious. It does make Frieza wonder what that power was, and if it is a Super Saiyan, that makes him even happier. Not only is he killing the Saiyans, but he made a Super Saiyan appear, and he defeated a Super Saiyan easily. He had nothing to worry about this entire time. It makes him laugh, pretty much uncontrollably, maniacally too. Once more he lifts his finger up, ready to kill Kakarot, with Vegeta still watching on, trying to regain his composure. He flies back in to try and fight Frieza. Frieza of course just continues dodging him again, surprised that Vegeta's still alive. But just like Kakarot, Vegeta has determination carrying him. Also, rage, just as much as Kakarot's feeling. Even though he might have not shown it before, Vegeta knows that somewhere deep down he has cared for the Saiyans at least somewhat his whole life, even if it was very minutely. And not this specific group of Saiyans, but the Saiyans in general. That too, it's part of his whole pride as a Saiyan. He's the prince. Not only is he watching his comrades die here, he's watching the entire Saiyan race die, the remainder of it, whatever little's left of it, and it angers him to no end. But even more than that, he needs to prove himself. He needs to show that he's still the strongest Saiyan. He's the prince. It's his duty to do that.
Yeah, okay,
if
buddy.
Kakarot can get a boost in power like that, he can too.
I can too.
He'll defeat
Yeah.
Frieza. His whole life, he's wanted to do that. He's not going to die here. As one of the two Saiyans left, he's not going to let either of them die here. It's out of pride for his race, determination to win, and out of anger for everything that's happened so far. That's what's fueling him right now. The emotions he's feeling are even more intense than what Kakarot felt. And something snaps within Vegeta. His power skyrockets, and for a brief moment, he becomes something unexpected. In an outburst of rage, he attacks Frieza, with Frieza completely dumbfounded at what he's seeing.
What?
Vegeta's hair's turned completely golden. His eyes have changed color. He has that same aura that Kakarot had. But his power is so much more intense. Frieza can't even sense it, but he can just feel it.
Wow.
The pressure from that aura. Briefly,
His pride.
without even realizing it, Vegeta has turned into a Super Saiyan.
He didn't
A true
care
Super
anymore.
Saiyan. Blinded by his rage, it fuels him to keep fighting, even though he barely has any stamina left. With the sheer amount of power he's showing off, he completely stuns Frieza, hitting him with a rapid flurry of attacks. Frieza's launched far into the atmosphere, with Vegeta charging a Gallic gun, the strongest one he's ever done yet. The purple beam of light darts across the sky, making direct contact with Frieza, once and for all, defeating the Emperor, launching him far into space. Vegeta obviously would have loved to savor that more, but in the moment the power intoxicated him, the rage intoxicated him, plus the desire to just kill Frieza right then and there. He didn't know if this power was fleeting, he didn't even know what it was, and due to his lack of energy at the moment, he even drops out of the form. He looks over at the rest of the group. Raditz and Nappa are there lifeless, with Kakarot there on the ground unconscious, but thankfully still alive. Whatever happened just now, that must have been what Vegeta was theorizing. Kakarot didn't become a Super Saiyan, Vegeta did. Just like he wanted. It's only natural. He's the prince after all, an elite warrior. And while the four of them did put class aside, Vegeta thinks it has to do with him being an elite class warrior, and that's why Kakarot couldn't do it. He's low class. He just simply couldn't pull it off. But still, it's amazing
Low
that he got
class
semblance of that.
trash.
Of course, what Vegeta doesn't
Yeah.
know is that both of them are capable of doing this. Kakarot just needed a little bit more of a push. And it does make Vegeta wonder if it's possible. Especially because they're not done yet. Sure, they defeated Frieza, but King Cold's still out there somewhere, and now they have
Old
half the
King
amount of people.
Cold.
Kakarot's not even conscious right now. He still doesn't even know what happened. Vegeta's glad that he was able to defeat Frieza, especially with him being the one to deliver the final blow. But in the end, they still did have a loss. It wasn't a flawless victory, and they should probably leave this planet as quickly as possible. He buries Raditz and Nappa, showing uncharacteristic respect for them. If this Vegeta were any different, normally he wouldn't even think of doing this. He probably would just laugh at their death, saying they were weak and they deserved it. But here, he's showing respect for their efforts, respect for them being his comrades. Kakarot's also placed in a healing pod on the ship. As Vegeta sets a course for a new planet, Kakarot eventually does wake up and fully heals. Learning of how the fight ended, glad that Vegeta was able to win there. Kakarot still doesn't know what power overcame him, but he wonders if he can unlock the same power that Vegeta did, the true Super Saiyan form. Although, he still can't help but regret the death of Nappa and Raditz. But Vegeta says it might not be a total loss. He has heard rumors out there, although they're just rumors. But somewhere in the universe there's apparently some sort of wish-granting orb, or maybe multiple wish-granting orbs. He doesn't know for sure, but it makes him wonder if they'd ever be able to bring anyone back. He kinda wants to pursue that, and if they do exist, well, they'll just take them for whatever planet they find them on. Remember too, while they are the protagonists of the story, the Saiyans
They're
are still not
pirates.
good people. If these wish-granting orbs do exist out there, Vegeta and Kakarot will just take them from whatever planet they're on. Of course, they're not as cold-hearted as normal Saiyans now, but it's not like they're pure good superheroes either. But whatever the case may be, they're gonna go and find them, if they even do exist, that is. But first, they need to figure out where to go next in general. Not only in that search for wish orbs, but just what their next step is in life. Especially because soon enough, King Cold will probably find them. Of course, King Cold does eventually come by the planet where the fight took place on. And out in space, he finds something really interesting. He finds Frieza. He's mangled, but he's still alive. Only just barely, though. He's just been floating aimlessly out in space, with no power to even move around. But King Cold's not too worried. Thankfully, his body's relatively still intact. Frieza's badly injured. A lot of his injuries are internal. But simply placing him in the healing pod, that'll be enough to heal him up. They won't even need to put mechanical parts in him like Mecha Frieza. Immediately, King Cold takes Frieza in on the ship, and he starts his healing process. With King Cold wondering who could have possibly done this. He knew Frieza was doing something about the Saiyans,
Not
so
his
maybe
pretty
it's related to that.
princess.
But you'll have to wait for Frieza to wake up before he actually finds out. While the two Saiyans do want to pursue the wish orbs, they obviously have no idea of where to even go for them.
Part
And
4.
that's if they exist. It's just rumors. They don't even know the true name of them because they're calling them wish orbs and not Dragon Balls. But Vegeta does have a few theories. So he thinks that if they're related to magic somehow, maybe a magical species would have them. And the only one that comes to mind naturally would be the Namekians. So for all they know, if they exist, they would be on Namek, so they might as well go and search for them there. Vegeta and Kakarot set out for Namek. This is still a long shot, but at least worth a try. Of course, the second they arrive on the planet, Namek is on alert. Usually they're not the fighting type anyways, but they see that they're dressed like the Frieza Force, and they can tell that these two are Saiyans. Usually that's a bad sign. But Vegeta talks to some of the locals and tells them why they're here. It's pretty simple. They're looking for wish orbs. They just want to revive two of their allies, and that's it. They have no desire to fight here. Although if they do need to fight, they would win. But obviously the Namekians aren't going to give up their Dragon Balls that easily. Even if they say that's the wish they want to make, first of all, they can't really verify it, and
Facts.
second of all, it's not like they would give the Dragon Balls to Saiyans, especially if they're working under Frieza. Well, not anymore. Vegeta mentions that Frieza's been dealt with by them. But still, the Saiyans aren't necessarily good people. It would be kinda naive to just hand over Dragon Balls to some Saiyans. But of course, the Namekians don't even mention the Dragon Balls. They pretend that they don't exist. Now, Vegeta probably would realize that they're lying, but they could be telling the truth. Surprisingly enough, Vegeta decides to leave. And Kakarot wonders why. The Namekians are probably just lying to them. They could just take the Dragon Balls. But that's not going to work. First of all, they don't want to just needlessly slaughter everyone here. Sure, maybe the old Saiyans would like to, but now it's kind of worthless. Especially because if they did that, first of all, they could accidentally destroy the Dragon Balls in the process. Which is exactly right, because if they kill the wrong Namekian, it could mean they go dormant. Plus, if the Namekians aren't willing to help, they're not going to be able to use the Wish Orbs. If the Wish Orbs are real, Vegeta and Kakarot don't know how they work. Vegeta would assume there's some sort of ritual involved. And there's two big issues with that.
Would he assume
One,
that?
they have to find that out from the Namekians first, and the Namekians obviously wouldn't tell them. Even if they got the Dragon Balls by force, first of all, they'd have to kill the Namekians in the process, which would mean that no one would be able to give them the info. And if they left the Namekians alive, they wouldn't tell the Saiyans regardless. Plus, on top of that, Vegeta did briefly hear them speaking a different language. They were speaking Namekian. Not only do they not know the ritual, they don't know the language. And if there's some sort of incantation attached to it, Vegeta realized that they'd probably be screwed because they don't know how to speak Namekian. They'd have to have one of the Namekians willingly working with them, which obviously is not going to happen regardless. But they'll come back eventually, and this is the best way to do it. Maybe they could try again in the future, and try to convince the Namekians some other way. But for now, Vegeta thinks it's best not to waste their time here. They could look on other planets. They have no confirmation of the Wish Orbs existing, and they have no clue of how they work if they do exist. But based on that reaction from the Namekians, they probably do exist. They'd have to find some way to convince the Namekians, though. Taking them by force is not going to work. So, they leave Namek, wondering what their next move is still. Well, in the meantime, they can at least train. Vegeta still has to get a better control on Super Saiyan. Of course, he can use it at will, but it's not really too efficient right now. Plus, it takes a lot of effort to tap into at the moment. He only barely was able to use it against Frieza, so he's going to have to work more on it. And as for Kakarot, he can't tap into False Super Saiyan at will. But Vegeta thinks there's two outcomes here. One, False Super Saiyan is actually a form that's exclusive to a low-class Saiyan like Kakarot. Or two, it's an omen of sorts, an omen for the true Super Saiyan form like Vegeta's. Although he's not sure if a low-class Saiyan could unlock that, but he'd at least like to work with Kakarot towards that. Besides, it's better to have a training partner that's around his level. And imagine if the two of them had Super Saiyan, they'd be utterly unstoppable. Of course, their biggest threat right now is King Cold. Now, they don't know the true extent of his power because they've rarely seen him in action, if at all. But they assume his power has to be somewhat around Frieza's. Maybe he has other forms beyond that too, which would be a pretty big issue if that's the case. Thankfully for them, that's not actually the case here, but his power actually is around where Frieza's is. But they're going to prepare for the worst. Even against Frieza, they thought they
Bro, why does King Cole look like handsome Squidward right now?
might be prepared, but he still attacked early and they didn't
Immaculate
really want to fight
jawline.
just then. And that was a huge challenge. They barely won there. So, with King Cold, they can't be too safe. And it seems like for now, they're not going to be able to revive Nappa and Raditz, unfortunately. But if they get the Dragon Balls, that's all they want to do. They just want to revive the other two Saiyans. Bringing the other Saiyans back is pretty much a lost cause for them, especially without a planet for them to go on. Plus, the Dragon Balls wouldn't even be able to do that because it's a large group of people that's been dead for many years. Most Dragon Ball sets won't be able to do that at all, but at least with Raditz and Nappa, the Dragon Balls should be able to revive them. Well, presumably. But in terms of the other Saiyans, there's not really a point to bring them back now. It's already been so long. They've been dead for nearly 2 decades, and there's no point to drag them back to life. And he doesn't even realize that it's impossible to do. But no point mulling on that right now. Frieza's defeat sends echoes throughout the entire universe. With the Emperor defeated, a lot of other people are going to be hearing about those rumors. One other group of space criminals actually does hear about this. The Heaters. They realize that without Frieza around, there's a power vacuum. They could take control of that, and it'll be great. This is exactly what they wanted.
I don't know who
there still
these
is
guys
one
are,
issue.
but hey,
King Cold's
it's
around.
cool.
Now, obviously, Frieza is still alive,
I thought we were
but
going to talk
nobody
about
knows that.
Bojack.
As for King Cold, though, obviously there's no reason to think that he's dead, and he still is around and active. Just dormant for now, for some reason, and no one really knows why. But the Heaters realize that he's going to be an issue. Plus, whoever was the one to defeat Frieza in the first place, that could also be an issue as well, because clearly someone was working against him. Although, everyone hates Frieza. But if there's someone specifically fighting against him, that could be a big threat. Although, thankfully, the Heaters have some great resources for info. Mainly in the Frieza Force, because some of them are still around, which is the whole reason King Cold still has the resources to bring Frieza back in the first place. However, the fact that Frieza's alive is kept pretty much under wraps. Nobody knows because King Cold can't let this info leak. However, one rumor that spreads around pretty much uninhibited
Bro, they
is
dreads
the rumor
are
regarding who
immaculate.
defeated Frieza. The Heaters hear that apparently Frieza was
The
defeated by
Heaters.
Saiyans of all people.
Okay.
Well, they guess that makes sense. And Alec wants to find these two Saiyans, and they might have the perfect person for that. One of their underlings, Granola, comes to them one day,
Oh,
doing one of his normal
okay.
jobs, and the Heaters just casually
Granola is
mention
way
Frieza's
too
death.
OP.
Of course, Granola knows about this, and he's pretty happy about it too. But then he hears something even more interesting. The Heaters subtly mention the Saiyans to each other, and Granola obviously picks up on this, just as they wanted. They explain to him that it's unconfirmed as of now, but apparently some Saiyans are responsible for defeating him. And just to rile him up even more, they say the Saiyans are aiming to take over the Frieza Force as is. They'll probably defeat King Cold next and then take the Force for themselves. This is huge news to Granola. He didn't even consider the fact that King Cold's still alive, but more importantly, the fact that Saiyans were the ones to defeat Frieza. There's Saiyans out there still, and they're that strong? Not to mention, they're going to take over the Frieza Force. They'll just replace Frieza. Frieza might be dead, but it doesn't matter if there's going to be Saiyans in his place. That's actually worse in Granola's eyes. He barely contains his rage, but he thanks them for the info, as he returns to Planet Cereal. And Alec's pretty content. This is exactly how they wanted it to go, and he could tell that Granola's going to try and do something rash and probably find the Saiyans for himself to try and defeat them. Now, they could go search for the Saiyans themselves, although at the moment they're not too sure if they could defeat the Saiyans. And on top of that, having Granola absent is great. This will remove that thorn from their side, and they could observe Granola. They remember that encounter with that one Saiyan a while ago. There was a Namekian on that planet, and he's probably still there with the Wish Orbs if they do exist. Granola will lead them right to the Wish Orbs, then he'll leave Planet Cereal, and they can get the Wish Orbs for themselves. Although, one thing does stick in their mind, specifically for Gas, remembering that Saiyan that he fought a while ago. Not too long before the destruction of Planet Vegeta, Bardock was on Planet Cereal and fought the Heaters like normal. Even though we're using Z Bardock's design here, we could still fit in the events with Super Bardock. So, all of that still happens. Gas doubts this is true, but somewhere
Super
deep in his mind,
Bardock?
he wonders if this is
By the way, I'm not that familiar with like the Super series. So the heaters are new to me. I know a bit about granola, but all I know is he took on the Saiyans. He was sniping them. So
Related to that
all
Saiyan at
this
all.
stuff is
If
new to
there's a
me.
Saiyan out there that's that strong, strong enough to defeat Frieza, what if it is related? Probably not, but the possibility is there. Once Granola gets back to Cereal, he immediately goes for the Dragon Balls and wishes for more power. Right now in Universe 7, there's not anyone that's crazy strong, at least in terms of mortals. We'll cover Earth later, but there's no one really strong there. Frieza's dead and the strongest people left are King Cold and Vegeta. Although, unbeknownst to everyone else, there is one more Saiyan out there that nobody knows of who has a great amount of potential, but hasn't fully harnessed his power. So really, it's just those three that set the ceiling for the power in this universe right now. So when Granola makes this wish, he becomes the strongest in the universe, but at this point in the story, this places him well beyond the Super Saiyan, and even where Frieza was at his full power. And since he's only facing other mortals, Taranbo doesn't even need to take anything off his life. The only reason Taranbo had that condition is because who he was trying to surpass. In the actual Granola arc, Taranbo says he's able to make Granola stronger, but not beyond his latent potential. His latent potential would probably be enough to become strong here without losing any of his life. Essentially, he's getting his potential unlocked kind of like Piccolo did, giving Granola his own ultimate form unknowingly. And with the wish being different, we'll introduce another change here. Since he's unlocking Granola's potential as is instead of compressing his entire life for that, this awakens something strange within Granola. His ultimate form is his double red-eyed form. Other than that, he has no sort of physical changes. This should be more than enough to defeat the Saiyans. So, Granola sets
All
out on
new
his
to
hunt
me.
for the Saiyans.
All
It's a
new
little
to
bit
me.
tough, but he's able to get some leads. He might even be able to ask Taranbo again because it doesn't seem like his recharge period is too long in the manga. So, he just waits a little bit, and once Taranbo's back, he could just ask for the info. Although he does have to search for the Dragon Balls again, which does take a little bit of time. Monaido's concerned, but he could tell he can't stop Granola now. With the amount of time Granola needs to actually find the Dragon Balls here, let's say a few months have passed, especially since he needed to do that twice. He goes to hunt down the Saiyans, eventually finding a planet that they're on. There's just two of them,
Okay.
Kakarot and Vegeta. He asks for all the info on the Saiyans that he can get, so not only did Taranbo give him the location of their temporary base, but he knows all their powers, and he knows which one's the strongest. Vegeta is. He's apparently a Super Saiyan, some sort of fabled legend. Not that he's concerned though. With his current power, he'll be able to defeat them pretty easily. Kakarot and Vegeta are on their base right now. It is temporary, so it's not really a base, but they did find a planet to actually
It's a
settle
fob.
on. This is basically where they're living for the time being. The two of them are just sitting around eating, killing time. Two beams of light then dart across the sky. Vegeta's barely able to dodge in time, but one of them hits Kakarot directly. It's a sniper shot. Someone's watching them, and it was aimed at their vital points. Thankfully, Kakarot was able to briefly move, so it didn't just incapacitate him immediately, but he still did take a good amount of damage. And without hesitation, the two of them rush over to wherever that sniper shot came from, just in the general direction at least. More sniper shots come at them and they try their best to dodge it. With Vegeta then powering up into Super Saiyan, flying over as fast as he can, this makes it a lot easier to dodge those attacks. But still, it's not effortless to dodge them. It's just his speed helping out. These shots are so precise too. And, just as important, they're powerful. And they eventually find the culprit, with Granola standing there, ready to face them. They have no clue of who Granola is, but Granola knows who they are. And he points at Vegeta first, the prince. He'll pay for what the Saiyans did to Planet Cereal. Planet Cereal? He feels like he has to know that from somewhere, but can't really put his finger on why. What do the Cerealians have to do with the Saiyans? Vegeta says he's sorry to burst his bubble, but he has no clue of who Granola is. And he was never on any Planet Cereal. It doesn't matter though. Granola knows what their goal is now. Plus, being a commander of the Saiyans is more than enough for him to kill Vegeta. Their relation to Frieza, their relation to the Saiyan army that killed all the Cerealians. It's more than enough justification for Granola. Although
Yeah,
amidst
sure,
his rage,
buddy.
Granola accidentally lets one thing slip. He didn't mean to say this, but he mentions that a dragon gave him unstoppable power, so they won't be able to win here. A dragon gave him that power? Vegeta doesn't question it any further, but this does make him realize something. Granola must have wished for this power. Some sort of dragon granted him it? That sounds a lot like the Namekian wish orbs that he was thinking of. Although he can't really confirm since he barely knows anything about them, but it's something to keep in mind. The two Saiyans prepare for battle, with Kakarot even surprisingly powering up. Granola's other eye turns red, and an aura flares up around him, and as he looks at Kakarot, he can see that his vitals are changing, and his power's changing too. Kakarot only just very recently unlocked this, but he's going to definitely be able to use it here, as he turns Super Saiyan. So, there's two Super Saiyans. Kakarot must have unlocked this right after Granola got all that info from Taranbo. No matter though, one Super Saiyan or two, Granola will be able to defeat them here. And as that fight begins, out in space, Frieza finally heals. His damage actually wasn't as
Oh,
severe,
man.
and he doesn't even need all those mechanical parts. There's no Mecha Frieza, it's just Frieza. And obviously he wants revenge against the Saiyans, and gives King Cold all the info that he has. They're gonna go find those Saiyans to stop them once and for all. The Heaters are making their move on Planet Cereal. Frieza's making his move on the Saiyans. And all the while, Granola, Vegeta, and Kakarot are completely oblivious to all of this, caught up in their own fight thanks to misinformation from the Heaters. Against Granola, the Saiyans are actually able to do decently well. But
Hmm.
it's still not really enough. They do have a lot of power, but it's
Part
really just enough
5.
to hold them off, especially with the fact that Kakarot's already a bit injured because of the sneak attack. So they're going to need a lot more than just holding Granola off. This guy's clearly out for blood, and they still don't really know why. But Kakarot does have an idea. Now, he knows Vegeta's not going to like this because it's kind of unsaiyan-like. But it's their only shot at surviving, their only shot at winning, and it's a chance to revive Raditz and
It's
Nappa.
not
He tells
fusion, is
Vegeta
it?
they're going to need to retreat. Yeah,
Oh,
he doesn't
okay.
really like that. But Kakarot must have a good reason for that, because usually he wouldn't suggest something like that. But he's being pretty tactical here
Tactical
and does have a
retreat.
good idea in mind.
Nothing wrong
He'll
with
tell
that.
Vegeta in a bit. The two of them combine all their power, no longer controlling their ki either. Not that this will injure Granola anymore, but it's going to allow them to escape pretty easily. Together, the two of them launch a powerful blast at Granola. It doesn't do much damage to him, but it rips off a chunk of the planet with Granola on it. This is why they stopped using ki control. They easily were able to rip off this part of the planet, launching it far into space with Granola still on it. At fast speeds too, they only have a brief chance now. They make a beeline for their ship and immediately start flying to the other side of the planet. And once they arrive on the other side of the planet, they then launch off from there. This way it buys them time as Granola tries to get back on the planet, and on top of that, launching off from the other side of the planet means that Granola doesn't see where they're going. And by the time Granola even notices they're gone, it's already too late. He doesn't know what direction they launched off in, so he just has to assume. Eventually he does make it back down on the planet just fine. That piece of the planet they launched off, it did fly off pretty quickly, giving them a good amount of distance. But still, it only bought them just a minute, but that was more than enough time. Granola recollects himself, calling them cowards for escaping, but he'll find them again. It's only a matter of time, and now he knows more about them by just fighting them a little bit. And the Saiyans aren't just aimlessly flying off. They do have a really good idea. Kakarot's idea was to head to Planet Cereal, wherever that is. It takes them a bit of time to find it, but eventually they do get there, because apparently this is where Granola's from, and if he did wish for this power from a dragon, that means maybe there's a set of Dragon Balls here, so all they have to do is just find it on this planet. But if this is Granola's home, that means they're probably going to have to face him here again. So they're going to have to lay low for a bit, especially because he's probably going to show up soon. But if this all turned out to be true, it'll be great. First of all, they were able to escape from Granola, so at least that was a good thing, because it allowed them time to heal on their spaceship, which means they did get a little bit of a boost in power, and with this extra strength they might be able to defeat Granola themselves next time. But on top of that, if they do get the Dragon Balls here, assuming that they do exist, and they're able to use them, they'll be able to revive Raditz and Nappa. Some extra firepower against Granola. And to make things even better, this is Granola's home
But
turf,
they'll
so
be
fighting here will probably make him
weak.
hold back a little bit more just to not destroy everything around them. Sure, he knows this planet way better than them, but they're still going to be advantaged because of that. But when they arrive, surprisingly someone comes to greet them, thinking it's Granola that's getting there.
The
This is
heaters?
a different ship than normal, and he doesn't recognize it. But Monaido goes out to see who's here, traveling over to the ship which isn't too far away from his home. He watches from a distance though
Monaido.
because he doesn't know if this is an enemy or not. But when he sees who gets off the ship, his eyes widen. He immediately goes over to them. It's two Saiyans, but one of them looks exactly like that Saiyan from so long ago, Bardock. It can't be a coincidence, especially here. It turns out that Monaido's judgment was right. This actually is Bardock's son. He goes to the two of them to ask them why they're here and who they are. And out of curiosity, he asks Kakarot if he's related to someone named Bardock. And obviously Kakarot remembers his backstory here, so yeah, he remembers Bardock. Very vaguely though, but he is related to him. That's his father. Although Vegeta finds it pretty interesting that there's a Namekian here. Assuming the Namekians are connected to the Wish Orbs, there really must be a set of them here. So Vegeta asks if he knows anything about them. And Monaido doesn't really know how to answer. Of course, he's kind of inclined to help Kakarot because it is Bardock's son, but still, the timing of this is all very weird. Especially because he knows Granola's after the Saiyans. Before he answers that, he has to ask them one thing. Did they face Granola? They might not actually know his name, but they just know that he's a Cerealian and he's apparently the last one, so they assume that's who he's talking about. And this isn't really too surprising. If he is the last Cerealian alive, it makes sense that people on this planet would know about him, especially the guy connected to the Dragon Balls that he used. He begs them to not fight anymore. He'll actually help them get the Dragon Balls too, but he doesn't want them to hurt Granola, and vice versa too. Granola's being misguided, and he shouldn't be going down this path. They need to stop fighting before things get worse. It's good that they were able to escape, and that they weren't able to kill Granola either. This is all a big misunderstanding, especially now seeing Kakarot. He's actually inclined to help these two. And despite being Saiyans, they don't seem to be here with malicious intents. They're here for the Dragon Balls. If it was just Vegeta, this would be a different story. But Kakarot being here is what helps out. Soon after, another ship lands nearby. It's Granola, immediately jumping off. Ready to attack the Saiyans, but he sees Monaido there, who tries to get Granola to stop. But it's going to take more than that for Granola, especially because unlike here, the Saiyans weren't tricked by the Heaters. The Heaters just sent Granola after the Saiyans, planting that idea in his head. And Granola tells Monaido to get out of the way. He's going to kill these two Saiyans. But before the fight resumes, the four of them all feel a very strange presence. Vegeta and Kakarot know it very well. It's huge power. No, actually, it's two big powers.
Frieza
Could it
and
be the
Gold.
Heaters coming nearby? No, that doesn't make sense because he would sense four of them. Plus, he actually hasn't seen them in a few days. He doesn't know where they are. and Vegeta and Kakarot are astounded. There's no way. That's Frieza's power. He's alive? But it's not coming towards them. Elsewhere on the planet, Frieza lands with King Cold. The Heaters are actually on planet Cereal right now, suppressing their powers. Vegeta and Kakarot didn't even know to look out for them. And thankfully, their powers are low right now as well as Granola's, although Granola's strength almost did flare up there when he got angry. But the Frieza Force doesn't even know those three are here, nor do they care about Granola. They're here for the Heaters. This entire time, the Heaters have been on the planet looking for the Dragon Balls themselves, but of course, they have to do it manually because there's no Dragon Ball radar for them. But Frieza's not there for that either. He doesn't even know about that. He knows what the Heaters have been up to. They probably thought he was dead and tried to take power, right? The Heaters deny this, but Frieza says he was able to weed out the spies amongst his ranks, seeing some unauthorized communication with the Heaters, giving some info to them that they shouldn't have. But he's still here, so none of that's going to get past him or King Cold. It's time for them to die. The Heaters do get rid of the battle, but without a wish for themselves, they're not really going to be doing much against Frieza. Especially because, unlike normal, Frieza's in a different form here. They're used to seeing him in his first form. They've never seen him like this. It seems like he's constantly going to stay in his final form now, showing his true power to make sure people fear him. Although, he still is kind of holding back because he's not in his 100%. But still, this is more than enough. He kills the Heaters with ease. And just to vent his frustrations, as well as a nice warm-up for him, he decides to blow up the planet.
Yeah,
after so
like
long
Frieza.
healing, he has to get used to this again. Granted, it didn't really take too long for him to heal. The healing chamber did most of the work after all. The issue was, King Cold had to spend time finding him, and Frieza also had to figure out what was going on, catching up to the events that he missed. The healing process didn't take long, but his return, it did take a bit. And even though he wasn't even gone a year, it still seems like a lot has happened. But whatever the Heaters are doing here, he won't have to worry anymore. They're dead, and this planet's gone. Frieza's ship leaves. On the other side of the planet, Kakarot, Vegeta, Granola, and Monito feel the planet rumbling. What's going on? Granola recognized that as the Heaters' power. They were fighting Frieza and King Cold for some reason. Although they seemed completely outmatched. With Granola's new power, he could have easily killed the Heaters himself, but he didn't really have a reason to. And Frieza didn't really grow much stronger. Actually, if at all. He hasn't trained yet. So he's pretty much the same strength as before, and if they did fight him, it would have been a really easy battle, especially with the three of them there. But even one of them alone could have been enough. But that's besides the point. This all happened so quickly, and he's already gone. They're more than ready to go fight him, now that they've got a judge of his power and see that he's not too much stronger, if at all. But now there's a bigger issue. The planet starts shaking even more violently, and they realize what happened. Vegeta and Kakarot have seen this before. They've watched planets explode, and they know how it feels. Lava starts erupting out of the ground, and Kakarot yells out at the other two, telling them to leave as quickly as possible. He and Vegeta get back on their ship, launching off into space. Granola then grabs onto Monito, quickly flying back over to his ship and launching off too, following the Saiyan ship as they watch from space with planet Cereal exploding behind them. They don't even see Frieza's ship either. He's already long gone. He couldn't just immediately blow up the planet after all, because otherwise his ship wouldn't have made it out of there. But at least this way he got to watch the fireworks from space, which he loved seeing. Next, he's going to have to find those two Saiyans, but he's going to need to get stronger beforehand. Now he knows there's no more traitors amongst his ranks. Unlike before with the treacherous Saiyans, he didn't take action right away, which he regrets. But here with the Heaters, he immediately went after them when he saw that there was a traitor. Granted, the Heaters don't really work for him, but those spies amongst his ranks, they were dealt with too. He has a no-tolerance policy for this, and learned from his mistakes with the Saiyans. Next, he'll kill them. In another solar system, the Saiyans and Granola land on the same planet. Granola's infuriated. His planet was just destroyed, and the two Saiyans are here too. He wants to fight them.
That's
again,
awkward.
but this entire time while they were flying, Monito has been trying to calm him down, and the Saiyans tell him to just chill out for a moment. They need to talk. They don't know
Chill
why
out
Granola
for a
left them in
moment,
the first
dog.
place, or who put the idea in his
Planet
head to do
just
so.
blew up.
Clearly he's always hated the Saiyans, but something sent him after them just now. He could have done it any time beforehand, but they know something must have caused him to do it at this moment in time. He found out about them living from the Heaters, and it seems like they're dead too. But they ask Granola, doesn't this all seem suspicious? It seems like the Heaters were maybe trying to use him or something, especially with the timing of Frieza coming there. And with them being on the planet in the first place, why would they be there on the planet when Granola's gone? And it's a long shot, but the whole reason the Saiyans went to the planet in the first place is because of the Dragon Balls, so maybe the Heaters went there for that exact same reason. Granola doesn't necessarily trust the Heaters either, nor does he like working with them, but they did still give him a job and made him stronger. But still, it's not too outlandish to think that they might work against him. But why? For what reason? No one knew that Frieza was alive either. And maybe that's part of it. Maybe the Heaters saw an opportunity to get stronger. Maybe they wanted to do what Granola did. And maybe Granola was a threat to them. They don't know for sure. They're just speculating here, which Granola doesn't really like. They still
Doesn't
know
even
nothing
matter.
about
They're
it.
dead.
But still, the theory makes sense. Something was going on that Granola didn't know about, nor the Saiyans for that matter. But all of that, they shouldn't focus on that now. What matters most now is the fact that Frieza's still alive. The three of them have a common enemy. They shouldn't be fighting each other, especially because these two Saiyans, they weren't the ones responsible for what happened on Planet Cereal, not decades ago and not now. And Granola is starting to remember, all those years ago, that one Saiyan who saved him, Bardock. Granted, Bardock was still there to wipe out the Cerealians in the first place, but still, he turned on his people for them. He's not exactly a hero in Granola's eyes, but still, everything Monaido's been telling him, he's been considering it, especially the fact that Kakarot's related to that guy. And after all, the two of them did just fight Frieza and nearly kill him. Of course, they didn't really do a good job at killing him, which Vegeta's kind of ashamed of. He thought he finished the job, but maybe he needed a little more power. He was pretty worn out during that fight after all, and did kill Frieza pretty hastily. Although, he's amazed that Frieza was able to survive that. But all that is besides the point. Granola's pretty conflicted, and Monaido tries to talk him down. At least they're all not fighting anymore. And whatever the Heaters had planned, that shouldn't matter either because they're gone now. But Granola's still incredibly conflicted. Of course, Frieza's a bigger target for him than the Saiyans are. Granola's planet's gone. Frieza's back, his greatest enemy. He has the power to defeat Frieza, but what are they supposed to do now? Monaido says he can bring the planet back. He could just make another set of Dragon Balls and they could just wish it back. But that's an issue still. Frieza will know it came back and will wonder why. It's going to be far too suspicious. They need to deal with Frieza first before bringing the planet back. But Vegeta and Kakarot have an idea. They ask Monaido to make a set of Dragon Balls right now. And they're not going to wish for power because that's not really their style. Plus, at the moment, they don't really need that because Frieza seems to be weaker than them still.
Bring back
Monaido makes
Raditz
a new
and
set of 2
Nappa.
Dragon Balls. Agreeing to what Vegeta and Kakarot want to wish for. They want more allies, and they have 2 perfect people in mind for that. A new Taranbo is summoned, and a wish is made. Revive Raditz and Nappa. Taranbo then disappears, granting the wish, but they don't see Raditz and Nappa anywhere nearby. And then it hits Monaido, realizing that the wish probably did work.
You didn't bring him back. You didn't bring him to the location, bro. You just brought, you just brought him back to life.
That would have been a separate wish after all. Well, whatever. As long as the wish worked, all they needed to do was go back to that planet they were on because thankfully it shouldn't be destroyed. And Raditz and Nappa would have no way off there because they have no ship there. The 3 of them have more than enough power for what they want to do, but with 2 extra allies, it's also going to be a lot easier. And Kakarot holds a hand out to Granola. Granola has no reason to trust them. He understands that. But still, at least for this battle, at least temporarily,
Allies.
Kakarot wants to fight alongside him as an ally. He knows what it feels like to lose others, and to lose his people as a whole. Sure, the Saiyans might have been terrible, but still, Kakarot never grew up knowing his species, outside of the 3 around him, and he wants to keep fighting to live. And if the 3 of them are together, Frieza and King Cold won't be an issue at all. Reluctantly, Granola shakes his hand. It's time to do this. The group sets out to find
Okay,
Raditz.
that's good. We're gonna stop it right there. All right, now we got Nappa and Raditz back. We ran into Granola. The Heaters are dead, and Frieza is back. So I'm guessing the next part, you gotta train up Raditz and Nappa, and then go after Frieza. And then after that, I'm not too sure what's gonna happen. Maybe Granola and Kakarot become close allies. I don't know, but we'll see. These were great episodes. Solid Saiyan, great job. All right, I'll see you guys on the next one. Y'all have a good day. Bye bye.